When my son-in-law looked me in the eyes and said, "Your loan application is denied, Mrs. Cortez," I felt my world collapse. 3 days later, I was digging through his financial records in the middle of the night. That's when I realized that family ties are like bank loans. Some are secured with love, others with nothing but empty promises. If you're watching this, hit that subscribe button and tell me where you're from. Because trust me, this story twists more than a tornado in Texas. I never thought I'd be that woman, the one who gets escorted out of a bank by security while her own flesh and blood watches from behind a mahogany desk. But life has a funny way of rewriting your story when you least expect it. My name is Helena Cortez. For 35 years, I built Cortez Textiles from a small workshop into one of the most respected fabric suppliers in the region. My late husband and I poured everything into that company, our savings, our dreams, our very souls. When Ricardo passed 5 years ago, I promised him I'd keep his legacy alive. That morning started like any other. I applied my lipstick carefully, chose my most professional pantsuit, and rehearsed my pitch one last time. The family business needed a cash injection after our main supplier suddenly doubled their prices. Nothing too dramatic, just a temporary setback that required a reasonable loan. What made me confident was knowing my son-in-law Carlos was the bank's regional manager. He'd married my daughter Isabella 2 years earlier in a lavish ceremony that I mostly paid for. Carlos always presented himself as ambitious, charming, and most importantly, devoted to family values. "Family takes care of family," he would say during Sunday dinners at my house, raising his wine glass in a toast. The receptionist smiled warmly when I arrived. "Good morning, Mrs. Cortez. Mr. Diaz is expecting you." The formality should have been my first clue. Not "your son-in-law is waiting," but "Mr. Diaz is expecting you." As if our connection had been severed the moment I stepped through those imposing glass doors. Carlos kept me waiting for 20 minutes. When I was finally ushered in, he didn't stand to greet me. No kiss on the cheek. No warm embrace. Just a cool nod toward the chair across from his desk. "Helena," he said, using my first name like we were suddenly equals. "Let's discuss this application of yours. Script part separator, The coldness in his eyes made my spine stiffen. This wasn't the Carlos who twirled my daughter around the dance floor at their wedding. This wasn't the man who promised to name their firstborn after my Ricardo. "I've reviewed your financials," he said, shuffling papers without looking at me. "The textile market is volatile right now. Your company's debt-to-income ratio doesn't meet our standards." "Carlos," I said, leaning forward, "you know this is temporary. We've weathered worse storms. That new contract with Meridian Hotels alone will." "Which hasn't been signed yet," he cut me off. "We can't approve loans based on potential contracts. But you know us. You know me. 35 years without missing a single payment on anything." He finally looked up, and what I saw chilled me. Ambition. Calculation. Something darker that I couldn't quite name. "Rules are rules, Helena. The bank has protocols. Even for family." I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. That's when he delivered the blow that would change everything between us. "Especially for family," Carlos said, closing my file with a decisive snap. "It would be unethical to give you preferential treatment. I'm sorry, but your application is denied." I sat there, stunned. This man had eaten at my table every Sunday for 3 years. I'd helped him surprise Isabella with her dream car on her birthday. I'd confided in him about business matters before I'd even told my own daughter. "There must be something," I managed. "A different type of loan, perhaps? Or if you could speak to—" "There isn't," he interrupted. "And I'd appreciate if you didn't try to circumvent my decision by approaching other branches. It would reflect poorly on everyone." A threat, veiled in professional courtesy. "Does Isabella know you're doing this?" I asked, clutching my purse so tightly my knuckles turned white. Something flashed across his face, annoyance, perhaps even fear, before his mask of professional indifference returned. "My wife understands that business and family are separate matters. Script part separator, My wife understands that business and family are separate matters." Those words hung between us like poison. I felt my throat tighten as I stood up, gathering what remained of my dignity. I see, I said, surprised at how steady my voice sounded when everything inside me was crumbling. Thank you for your time, Mr. Diaz. His expression softened slightly, perhaps recognizing the formality as the wound it was meant to be. Helena, please understand. I raised my hand to stop him. No need to explain further. Rules are rules, after all. As I walked toward the door, he called after me. I hope this doesn't affect our family dinners. I turned, fixing him with a stare that made him flinch. Everything affects everything, Carlos. The walk through that marble-floored lobby was the longest of my life. Every step echoed with humiliation. I could feel eyes on me, the tellers, the security guard, other customers. Did they know? Could they see that I had just been betrayed by my own family? Outside, I sat in my car for nearly an hour, too shaken to drive. My phone buzzed with a text from Isabella. How did it go with Carlos? Good news. I couldn't answer. What would I say? Yorus banjastikil dior fater's legacy. The man you married values his career more than our family? Instead, I drove to the cemetery where Ricardo was buried. I often came here when important decisions loomed, speaking to his headstone as if he could still advise me. He refused, Ricardo, I whispered, touching the cold marble. Our son-in-law looked me in the eyes and refused to help save what we built. A breeze rustled the nearby cypress trees, and in that moment of quiet grief, something hardened within me. A resolve I hadn't felt since Ricardo first fell ill, and I had to take over the company entirely. You won't let it change like this, I promised. Whatever game Carlos is playing, he's chosen the wrong opponent. Driving home, I made two decisions that would alter the course of everything to come. First, I would not tell Isabella what had happened. Not yet. Second, I needed to understand why Carlos had really denied the loan. Because despite his corporate veneer, I'd seen something in his eyes when I mentioned Isabella. Fear. And people only fear what they stand to lose. Script part separator ===. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Carlos's face, that cold, calculating look. Around 3 a.m., I gave up and went to my home office, pulling out every financial document related to the company. There had to be something I was missing. The next morning, my old friend Mateo called. He'd retired from banking 2 years ago but still maintained connections everywhere. Helena, are you sitting down? His voice sounded grave. What is it, Mateo? I heard about your loan rejection. Something felt off, so I made some calls. He paused. Carlos has been rejecting several family businesses lately. All established companies with temporary cash flow issues. My heart pounded. Why would he do that? The properties go up for auction when they default. And guess who's been buying them through shell companies? Valiente Investments. I frowned. Never heard of them. Because they didn't exist until 8 months ago, right after Carlos got promoted. The pieces started falling into place. He's deliberately forcing businesses to fail so he can acquire their assets cheaply. There's more, Mateo said. The bank's quarterly audit is in 3 weeks. There are rumors of irregularities in several accounts Carlos manages. That explained the fear I'd seen. Carlos wasn't just being callous, he was covering his tracks. Helena, Mateo's voice dropped to a whisper, I think your son-in-law is involved in something bigger than loan denials. This smells like fraud. After hanging up, I sat perfectly still, processing everything. My company wasn't just collateral damage in Carlos's career advancement, it was a deliberate target. And my daughter was married to the man orchestrating it all. I opened my laptop and began searching for information on Valiente Investments. If Carlos thought I would go quietly into bankruptcy, he had gravely misjudged the woman who had built an empire from nothing. Two can play this game of secrets, I thought, dialing the number of an old client who happened to be a private investigator. The warhead begun. Script part separator ===. My investigation into Carlos's activities consumed the next few days. Sleep became a luxury I couldn't afford. The private investigator I hired, Marco, delivered his preliminary findings within 48 hours. Mrs. Cortez, this goes deeper than we thought, Marco said, sliding a folder across my dining room table. Carlos has been siphoning funds from dormant accounts for months. He uses the money to fund Valiente Investments' purchases of the distressed properties. How many businesses are we talking about? I asked, flipping through the documents. 7 in the past year. Yours would have been number 8. Marco pointed to a chart. He's established a pattern. Deny crucial financing, wait for the business to falter, then swoop in through his shell company to acquire assets at pennies on the dollar. I felt sick. Ainda de bem que das nintinou? He's careful. He replaces the money before audits by shuffling funds from other accounts. It's a complex shell game. My hands trembled as I studied a grainy surveillance photo of Carlos meeting with 2 men I didn't recognize. Who are they? Real estate developers. They're planning to demolish the acquired properties for a massive commercial project. Marco hesitated, including the building where Cortez Textiles operates. De realization hit me like a physical blow. Carlos wasn't just denying me a loan, he was actively working to destroy my company, my legacy. There's something else, Marco said quietly. Your daughter's name is on some of these documents. Isabella? I whispered, my world tilting further. She knows. Her signature appears on incorporation papers for Valiente. Whether she understands what she signed, he left the sentence hanging. I closed my eyes, trying to process this betrayal. Had my own daughter conspired against me? Or was she another one of Carlos's pawns? Either way, I needed proof, hard evidence that would stand up in court. Because this was no longer just about saving my company. This was about justice. Script part separator equals. The next morning, Sunday, I dressed for family dinner as if nothing had happened. Every fiber of my being wanted to confront Carlos, to see the look on his face when I revealed what I knew. But strategy trumped emotion. I needed to play this carefully. Isabella greeted me with her usual kiss on the cheek. Mom, we've missed you. Carlos emerged from the kitchen, all charm and smiles. Helena, I was worried you might not come after our discussion. I forced a smile. Family is family, Carlos. Some things are more important than business. His relief was palpable. Poor fool thought I'd surrendered. During dinner, I watched them interact. Isabella seemed normal, laughing at his jokes, touching his hand affectionately. But there was something in Carlos's demeanor, a tension in his shoulders when business was mentioned, the way his eyes flickered to his phone every time it buzzed. Os de bank? I asked innocently. Estiu viatering de economic storm? He nearly choked on his wine. We're adapting. The audits coming up. Always a stressful time. I can imagine, I said, cutting into my steak. All those numbers needing to align perfectly. His fork paused midway to his mouth. Exactly. After dinner, while Isabella cleared the table, I cornered Carlos in the living room. I've been thinking about what you said, I told him. About business and family being separate. He relaxed visibly. I'm glad you understand. It vaste personal. Nothing ever is in business, I agreed. By the way, have you heard of Valiente Investments? They're making quite a splash in local real estate. The color drained from his face. I may have heard the name. Fascinating company. Came out of nowhere. Almost like magic. I smiled, patting his arm. Well, I should help Isabella with dessert. As I walked away, I heard his phone buzz again. He answered in a harsh whisper, not now. We have a problem. Indeed you do, Carlos, I thought. Indeed you do. Script part separator equals. When I returned home that night, I made my decision. The audit was in 2 weeks. If Carlos had been manipulating accounts, that's when he'd be most vulnerable. I needed access to his records, proof that would expose his entire operation. Call de Marco. I need to get into his office, I said without preamble. Mrs. Cortez, that's breaking and entering. There are legal ways. That will take months. By then, my company will be gone. I lowered my voice. I'm not asking you to do it. Just tell me how. After a long silence, Marco sighed. There's a cleaning crew that comes in after hours. De bem que uses Martinez services. If someone had a uniform. That was all I needed to hear. 3 nights later, dressed in a cleaner's uniform with a fake ID badge, I pushed my cart through the bank's empty hallways. My heart pounded so loudly, I was certain security could hear it through the cameras. Carlos's office was locked, but the master key from the cleaning supervisor's ring, borrowed without her knowledge, slid in smoothly. Inside, I quickly booted up his computer. Password protected, of course. I tried Isabella's birthday. Access denied. Our wedding date, perhaps? Access denied. Then I remembered something. At their engagement party, Carlos had joked about proposing on the day his stocks hit a record high. What was that date? My fingers trembled as I typed, 03142018. The screen flashed green. I was in. For the next 40 minutes, I downloaded everything I could find, emails, spreadsheets, transaction records. The evidence was all there, fabricated loan denials, money transfers disguised as administrative adjustments, the shell company ownership. Then I saw a folder labeled Project Phoenix. Inside were architectural plans for a massive development, exactly where my factory and 7 other family businesses stood. And there was my daughter's signature, clear as day, on a document authorizing the use of her trust fund to finance initial acquisitions. My knees nearly buckled. Isabella wasn't an innocent bystander. She was an active participant. As I was about to leave, the office door opened. I froze, clutching my USB drive. "What are you doing in here?" demanded a security guard, his hand moving to his radio. Script part separator, I just, cleaning, sir, I stammered in a thick accent, gesturing to my cart. The guard frowned. Cleaning staff aren't authorized in executive offices without supervision. My throat went dry. "Mr. Diaz, he tell me clean today. Special instructions. Wine spill on carpet." I pointed to a non-existent stain, praying he wouldn't look too closely at my face. The guard hesitated. "I don't remember seeing that on the schedule." "Last minute," I said, my heart hammering. "You check with supervisor if you want." He studied me for what felt like an eternity before finally nodding. "Just hurry it up. I'll be back in 10 minutes to lock up." The moment he left, I grabbed my things and slipped out the back entrance, careful to avoid the security cameras. By midnight, I was home, hands still shaking as I plugged the USB into my computer. What I found was worse than I'd imagined. Carlos hadn't just targeted my company. He'd orchestrated a sophisticated scheme affecting dozens of clients. Bank funds had been diverted, records altered, signatures forged. And my daughter wasn't just complicit, she was a beneficiary. I printed everything, securing copies in multiple locations. By dawn, I'd formulated a plan that made my stomach turn. To save my company, I would have to destroy my daughter's marriage. To preserve Ricardo's legacy, I might have to sacrifice my relationship with Isabella. Was I prepared to go that far? The answer came with surprising clarity, yes. The bank audit was scheduled for Monday, just 3 days away. That gave me the weekend to make my final preparations. I picked up my phone and called Mateo. "I need a meeting with someone at the Financial Crimes Division. Today. Script part separator, Mateo didn't disappoint. By Friday afternoon, I was sitting across from Agent Daniels of the Financial Crimes Division in an unmarked office downtown. "Mrs. Cortez, these allegations are extremely serious," Daniels said, flipping through the documents I provided. "You understand we'll need to verify everything independently." "Of course." I kept my voice steady. "The bank's audit begins Monday. If Carlos realizes he's being investigated, evidence might disappear." "And your daughter?" Daniels asked carefully. "You understand she may face charges as well?" The question pierced my heart, but I'd made my decision. "I want immunity for Isabella." Daniels frowned. "That's not something I can promise. If she knowingly participated." "She trusted her husband," I interrupted. "Test her signatures against the documents. I believe some may be forged." It was a gamble. I had no idea if Isabella had signed those papers willingly or been deceived. But I had to try to protect her, even as I prepared to bring down her world. "We'll move quickly," Daniels assured me. "But Carlos can't know we're coming." I nodded. Sunday night is the bank's quarterly dinner. All senior management will be there, including Carlos. It would be the perfect time to secure the evidence. As I left the meeting, my phone buzzed with a text from Isabella. Mom, are you okay? Carlos said you seemed upset at dinner. Can we talk? I stared at the message, my thumb hovering over the reply button. What could I possibly say? That I was about to destroy her life? That I suspected her of betraying me? Instead, I typed, let's have lunch tomorrow. Just the two of us. Script part separator, The lunch with Isabella was set for noon at Rosalinda's, the small Italian bistro where we'd celebrated so many milestones. I arrived early, claiming our usual corner table with a view of the garden. My hands wouldn't stop trembling. When Isabella walked in, I nearly lost my resolve. My beautiful daughter, looking so much like her father around the eyes. She smiled, waving as she navigated between tables. Mom. She embraced me, her familiar perfume bringing a lump to my throat. I've been worried about you. Have you? I asked, studying her face for signs of deception. She frowned, sliding into her seat. Of course. You've been distant since your meeting with Carlos. She lowered her voice. I know the loan didn't come through. He explained the bank's policies. I took a deep breath. Tell me about Valiente Investments, Isabella. Her expression froze, just for a second, but long enough. What? Your signature is on their incorporation papers. I kept my voice gentle. Did you sign those documents? Confusion flickered across her face. Carlos had me sign some investment papers months ago. Said it was a real estate opportunity. Did you read them? She looked down. Not really. He handles our finances. And Project Phoenix. The development that would replace Cortez Textiles with luxury condos? Now her eyes widened in genuine shock. What are you talking about? Dad's company. No, that's impossible. Her reaction told me everything. She wasn't complicit. She was another victim of Carlos's manipulation. Mom, you're scaring me, she whispered, reaching for my hand. What's happening? I squeezed her fingers, my heart breaking and mending simultaneously. Your husband isn't who you think he is, sweetheart. And on Monday, everyone's going to know it. Script part separator, I showed Isabella everything, the forged documents, the fraudulent transactions, the plans for our family business. With each revelation, her face grew paler. I trusted him completely, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. I gave him access to my trust fund, Dad's money. How could he do this? Power corrupts, I said, reaching across the table. The question is, what do we do now? Isabella straightened her shoulders, a flash of the Cortez strength shining through her grief. We stop him. That evening, Agent Daniels called with an update. We've verified your evidence, Mrs. Cortez. We'll move during the audit on Monday. That's to lat, insisted. The bank dinner is tomorrow night. All the executives will be there, including the regional director. Carlos will be cornered. We can't rush this, Daniels argued. Financial crimes require. My family's legacy doesn't have time for bureaucracy, I interrupted. If you won't act tomorrow, you will. The line went silent before Daniels sighed. What exactly are you planning? Justice, I said simply. With or without your badge. After hanging up, I called Mateo. I need a favor. A big one. Name it, he replied without hesitation. I need a invitation to the Riverside Bank quarterly dinner. And I need you to arrange for something to be displayed on every screen in that ballroom. The next evening, I dressed in my finest, a crimson dress Ricardo had always loved, pearls at my throat, steel in my spine. Isabella had insisted on coming, against my better judgment. He's my husband, she said firmly. I need to see his face when it all comes down. Script part separator, We arrived separately at the Grand Meridian Hotel. The bank's quarterly dinner was already in full swing, champagne flowing, executives in tuxedos and evening gowns mingling beneath crystal chandeliers. I spotted Carlos immediately, holding court near the head table, his arm around the regional director's shoulders like they were old friends. "Are you ready?" I whispered to Isabella, who stood rigidly beside me. "I don't know if I'll ever be ready for this," she replied, her voice breaking slightly. "But it needs to be done." Matteo approached, nodding subtly. "Everything set. When you give the signal, it'll start." Carlos finally noticed us, his smile faltering momentarily before he recovered. He excused himself from his group and headed our way. "Helena, what a surprise." His eyes darted nervously to Isabella. "Darling, I didn't know you were coming." "Clearly," she said coldly. "The regional director invited me," I lied smoothly. "He's quite interested in local businesses, especially those facing unusual difficulties with financing." Carlos face ardened. "This isn't the place." "Actually," I interrupted, "I think this is exactly the right place." I nodded to Matteo, who pressed something on his phone. The lights dimmed slightly as the screens around the ballroom, originally meant for the bank president's speech, flickered to life. Instead of the planned corporate presentation, they displayed emails, bank transfers, and forged signatures. Carlos's face went ashen as his crimes appeared in high definition for everyone to see. "What is this?" the regional director demanded, approaching quickly. "This," I said clearly enough for nearby tables to hear, "is evidence that your branch manager has been systematically denying loans to local businesses, then acquiring their assets through a shell company called Valiente Investments. Gazende murmurs spread through the room." Carlos lunged toward the nearest screen. "Turn that off," he shouted, but it was too late. The evidence was irrefutable, displayed on every screen in the ballroom. "You set me up," he hissed, turning to me with fury in his eyes. "No, Carlos," I replied calmly. "You did that all by yourself. Script part separator ===. The regional director's face had turned a dangerous shade of purple. "Dias, my office fast fin tomorrow morning." "Sir, I can explain," Carlos began, his composure crumbling. "You can explain to the federal agents," came a voice from behind us. Agent Daniel stepped forward, flanked by 2 officers. "Carlos Diaz, we're placing you under arrest for bank fraud, embezzlement, and financial crimes." The ballroom erupted in chaos. Executives pulled out phones, whispering furiously. Cameras flashed as someone from the local press, invited by Matteo, of course, captured the moment. As the agents led Carlos away in handcuffs, he locked eyes with me. "This isn't over, Helena," he snarled. "You have no idea what you've done." Isabella stepped forward, her voice steady despite her tears. "No, Carlos. You had no idea who you were dealing with." The aftermath unfolded with stunning speed. The bank suspended operations for an emergency audit. Dozens of clients came forward with similar stories. Carlos's scheme had stretched far beyond what even I had discovered. 3 weeks later, I sat across from the new interim regional director, a sharp-eyed woman named Judith Martinez. "Mrs. Cortez, the bank owes you an apology," she said, sliding a folder toward me. "And compensation." Inside was an offer, not just a loan approval but an opportunity to purchase controlling shares in the regional branch at a fraction of their worth. The bank's reputation was in tatters, and they needed respected community leaders to help rebuild trust. "You want me to buy the bank?" I asked incredulously. Judith smiled thinly. "Think of it as poetic justice. The institution that almost destroyed you could now belong to you." That evening, I told Isabella about the offer. She'd moved back home while filing for divorce, working alongside me to resurrect our family business. "You should do it," she said without hesitation. Dad would have loved the irony. I signed the papers on a Tuesday, exactly 3 months after Carlos had looked me in the eye and denied my loan. The irony wasn't lost on anyone, least of all me, that I now sat behind the same mahogany desk where he had attempted to destroy everything I'd built. The first change I made as the new owner was establishing the Cortez Community Fund, dedicated to supporting family businesses facing temporary hardships. The second was hiring a team of forensic accountants to trace every dollar Carlos had stolen and return it to its rightful owners. Carlos pled guilty to avoid a lengthy trial. 10 years in federal prison, no possibility of parole. I attended his sentencing, not for revenge but for closure. When they led him away, he wouldn't look at me. "Was it worth it?" Isabella asked as we drove home from the courthouse. Losing everything to gain something greater? I thought about it carefully. It wasn't about gaining anything, darling. It was about refusing to be erased. 6 months after taking over the bank, I received an unexpected letter from Carlos's mother in Argentina. She'd read about everything in the papers and wanted to apologize for her son's actions. Enclosed was a family photo album with a note, so Isabella can remember there was good in him once. I gave the album to my daughter, who was slowly rebuilding her life. Some days were harder than others, but the Cortez resilience ran in her veins. Today, as I unlock the doors to Cortez Textiles, now expanded with 3 new production lines, I think about how easily everything could have disappeared. How one man's greed nearly erased 35 years of hard work. But more than that, I think about Ricardo, and how proud he would be of what his family protected. Not just a business, but a legacy of integrity. The bank that once nearly destroyed us now helps build dreams for others. And each morning when I pass Carlos's old office, now converted into a community meeting space, I remember that in life, as in business, the most important collateral is your character. Some debts can never be repaid. But some victories are worth more than money could ever buy. Because what Carlos never understood was this: money buys power, but integrity builds legacy. And while he rots in prison counting days, I'm counting blessings. My daughter's healing, our company's growth, and the knowledge that some battles choose us for reasons we only understand after we've won them.